Okay, first off, I want to start by saying I am not trying to hate on this movie or the people who are in it. I'm just giving some constructive criticism towards it, and I don't own any of this. Now, there are some points I want to make, but first, we'll start off with the narrator. Now, there's not much wrong with this, but the narrator, literally, all she does is ask you a question and then talks about something relating to fate. And now, that isn't necessarily bad, it is just not helpful in any way. For example, take a look at the next time the narrator shows up.
What would you do if the person sitting next to you suddenly vanished into thin air? Would you allow yourself to believe your eyes? Or would you sink into a pit of insanity? Oh, don't answer. For you, it's just a hypothetical question. For her, it's not hypothetical at all. So why did she end up like this? Let's just say it was fate.
Now, of course, this isn't just the narrator. Characters like Robin, she is always looking confused no matter the situation. Like, um, I don't remember the character's name, but whoever Ella Jenkins plays, she always looks like she's a mom worried about their child getting hurt. And then Mari, uh, an egg. And last but not least, Marty it always looks like he's patronizing someone or he's surprised that he's talking to someone at such a low level. Alright, now on to the second point, which is the bad editing and CGI effects. Now, when I watched this film through the first time, there were some bad cuts and bad CGI effects. But when I was looking through it more analytically to see if I could edit it, there were some things I noticed. For example, here, where inside Robin's hair, somehow there is a handprint, even though it is meant to be on the wall behind her hair. So if they had put on that probably PNG image file of a hand, maybe like a frame or two later, then it would look a lot better. But obviously, this is just a minor thing, and people wouldn't normally see it if they were watching it. While this is just a middle school production, I feel like most of the CGI in here could easily be done by someone with some free time and a little bit of iMovie experience. For example, in this scene where Mick sees a bunch of monsters in a tunnel, that is very obviously a green screen of the people or the monsters shaking around in front of a green screen, and then they just stuck the green screen video onto the video of him looking out into the window. To show how easily this can be done, I did the exact same thing by taking a green screen video from the internet and then putting it onto the video. So here's what that looked like. Now to my third and final point, the plot. Alright, so here goes my lame attempt at trying to do a summary. So the story starts off where everyone is on a field trip to go to some sort of sacred Japanese shrine temple area, and while they're going through a tunnel, Mick, who's holding some sort of stone or artifact, disappears when coming out the other end. Now, Veronica, who is sitting next to Mick, realizes this and is super surprised and is wondering, where's Mick? But nobody else, except for Veronica, remembers Mick. Now, Robin, a friend of Veronica and Mick as well, realizes that there's something not quite right going on with her life right now. There are a lot of things that she does that revolves around being with Mick, and now that Mick has suddenly disappeared, she's realizing that there's something not quite right, but she doesn't remember that Mick is gone. And after every time she or something happens that uh, makes her realize that Mick is missing, then some handprints show up. And eventually, Robin remembers who Mick is after like 3 or 4 maybe events that remind her that there's someone missing in her life. And once she remembers that, she talks to her friend group about how Veronica was actually right and there is someone missing. And eventually, everybody in that friend group realizes as well, and they set out on a mission to find Mick. So they start off by talking to this lady, that apparently like went between worlds or something. It wasn't really clear, but they talked to her and they got a scroll from her. And with that scroll, they talked to this person named Kai, who, great actor by the way, um, basically researched a ton about it, and then came back and then talked to the friend group about what it is. And Kai brings the friend group together and he explains to them what that stone is and basically what's going on. And I'm trying to put it as simple as I can. There's this god named Susano, and he wants a lot of power. So he takes this stone and tries to put it together with his scroll, and that way he can have control over the fates or the fates of other people. So that means he'd have a lot of power. And before he could actually do that, other gods teamed up and basically killed him, I think, before he could do that. And so he couldn't do that. And this has some connection to Amaterasu somehow, the Japanese sun goddess, but it's kind of weird because Mick's sister, she explained her descendancy in a family tree presentation, and she said that they're a descendant from Susano and Amaterasu, his sister, which is kind of weird because they're descendant from a brother and sister, which means, you know. And after finding everything out, the group decides that they should go back to the ancient sacred temple shrine thing where Mick was last seen. And when they get there, they find the scroll that goes along with the stone, which is probably what Mick was looking for. Now that the group has both the stone or artifact thing and the scroll, Veronica thinks that they should finish whatever Mick was trying to do. And so Robin and Veronica start slowly walking to each other, and there's this big dramatic moment. And then, after thinking, the three other members of the group decide that no, it's a bad thing to do the ritual, and so right before they do it, they cut it, and Veronica sees Mick because they're so close to finishing the ritual. And as it turns out, this whole time Mick was trying to get the power, that same power that Susano, the god, was trying to get, which is the power to have control over the fates. Now, once I realize this, Veronica has this big heroic moment of getting over herself of trying to see Mick and decides against doing the ritual. And then they burn the scroll in some sort of pillar thing, and the stone artifact that they were carrying the whole time just turns into a couple pebbles, and they all just go home afterwards. Alright, now for what I didn't like about the plot. There were a lot of convenient things that needed to happen that happened throughout the whole thing in order for any of the whole plan to succeed. For example, there just so happened to be a lady who was special, went in between worlds or something, who had a scroll talking about Susano and the artifact. And there just so happened to be a person, Kai, who was willing to do a lot of research on it, who knew already about it, and actually helped the group. That's all for the points I have about this movie. Obviously, this movie is a middle school movie, so there's not that high of an expectation to do well. And it was okay, the story okay, acting was better than I thought, but the editing was horrible, I'd say. But it was a middle school movie, so there's not much else to expect. Out of 10, I think I'd rate this movie a solid 6. It's not bad, but it's not excellent either. Now, since this video is so close to the 10-minute mark, I'm gonna include like 40-50 seconds of just straight Robin being confused.
You and Mick are like best friends. If I didn't know you both better.
I I always save that seat. Yeah, sure. And I thought I'd go with I'm going with Mark. My boyfriend.
Yeah, I know. I mean,